like to ask the follow-up questions of the debriefing. I had a very similar situation when we were second out of four on the debriefing question. We were second on the larger job, and then the first one gave the lowest, which was half of the price of ours, and the rest of the bidders who were above. So I went to the debriefing and I said, like, is there any other factor that you're taking into consideration other than, lowest? And they said, as per contract, the lowest will get the bid. So I asked if there is a way for me to see how the proposal is structured. Is there a way? Because they didn't really give me an answer.
나중에 a foil because you request a foil.
And what is the developer?
I got my information and that can say, depending on the AEC, that could take a long time.
When do you debate though?
I don't know. They got it.
No, but I can't.
There's some AECs where you can see like the bid resolved.
Yeah, I saw that you know.
Also, but I don't know if it gives you like very detailed like pricing.
So I was looking to, they'll give you the bid results, but probably not, like, yeah. Like, if the bids are way too low, that's also, like, typically in the agencies, as he was saying, I've seen, like, if somebody's way too low, they are being rejected because they probably missed out a whole lot of scope. They are given an opportunity to,
Also the YouTube
Correct, yes. So typically, like, owners always do an engineer's estimate, which is, before even going out to bid, they want to know what it costs. And if you're within that range, great. If not, everybody comes to the table like, okay, what did we miss or what did the engineer miss? That kind of conversations happen. But if somebody's way too low, then, because then at that point, the agencies know we are going to be hit with ton of change orders down the line probably. Because at that time, GC is trying to make money. And everybody knows that's where GCs make money. Okay. What is estimating and what it consists of? It's basically your material, labor, equipment, very basic stuff. If you want me to go into details, please let me know. But in the interest of time, I don't want to spend too much time on every single slide. So there are different type of estimates, as we can see here. Depending on you have order of magnitude, which is like a rough order of magnitude in very conceptual phases. These kind of estimates are typically done by the engineer estimate that we were talking about. Project has obviously not gone out to bid. The owners are typically trying to get an idea of what it costs. So they start from like ROM, then they go to preliminary design development, they move on to 30%, 60%, 100% set of drawings. Then by estimating method, you can have like the unit cost estimating. As I was saying, you can have a cost per square feet. You can have by assembly. You can do, and then you can start getting into more details where you actually perform the quantity takeoffs and put the unit costs to that. For this session, I will be focusing on the quantity takeoff and the unit pricing part of the estimating. Again, like depending on the purpose or the role, you can have a feasibility estimate, budget estimate, bid estimate, negotiated estimate, change order estimate, life cycle cost estimate. I think most of the terms are self-explanatory, but if it's not, like, let me know. So this is just a summary of what we just talked about. Our rough order of magnitude is typically done with like pre-design, very low level details are there. You put a whole lot of contingencies if you're doing this kind of estimate. This could, I was saying that it's typically done by the engineers, but it potentially could be you because, when, I don't know, like a homeowner might call you to your place and be like, hey, what do you think this room renovation is going to cost or something like that. So that would be your rough order of magnitude. Schematic is where somebody has drawn a square on a sheet of paper and given you some basic idea of what you need to do. Design development is, okay, now you have more details, and then detail, the engineer's estimate. Bid is like at this point, the thing is out for bid. All right, so cost estimate includes material, labor, equipment, and general conditions. I think a lot of people typically where they kind of go wrong is I won't say wrong, but the confusion part comes in the general conditions and the general requirement, which a lot of people have a hard time estimating. I'm not going to go into the bonds and instruments part because I've been told you will have a session down the line. But other things that go into general conditions are, for that, you first need to be understanding the scope of work of what you are doing, how long you're going to be there at the site, because this general conditions typically is a factor of time. You have a project manager, you have a site super, is he there for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months? What exactly, is your timeline? You need temporary facilities and all that kind of stuff goes into these general conditions. So knowing how long you are going to be on the site or what your site conditions are is the key. So when you have, let's say, your drawings in front of you, you need to start immediately, start visualizing, okay, I'm entering the space this way. How am I gonna, bring in trucks? How I'm bringing the material? Am I going to the basement? Do I have to go to the roof? Do I need any equipment? Scaffolding? Are there crawl spaces or really high ceilings? All those kind of things should, start coming in, and you can start making a checklist, because all those are like site conditions that you have to be accounting for when you're putting a package together, because your labor, again, depends on that. How difficult the site conditions is. Like in an open room, it might take 10 minutes for somebody to put up a light fixture. But now if you make it 20 feet high ceilings, it's going to be longer because now you need a platform and XYZ. So understanding the drawings, just looking at what you're looking at, trying to visualize it. If available to you, definitely try to go on the job site. I don't know if every project does it, but a lot of project does. They do allow you to go on the job sites because then you have the actual feel of the field conditions.
Which would come under your mobilization.
I'm sorry?
So which would come under your mobilization.
Wait, what do you mean which would? Oh, like
Your mobilization, your movement.
mobilization.
You can we get the trailer? Then is it gonna cost more? Without a crane upward, all that is cost.
All of that is called.
Comes under mobilization.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. And depending on, like, let's say if you are in an occupied building, you can have multiple mobilizations, demobilizations, because you might be working on one side and then 2 months later, you probably have to move to the next side, because a lot of people, or like a lot of projects that I've lately worked on, they do it in occupied spaces. So they're supposed to be done in phases. So phasing is another thing that you have to consider, because now we're, as I said, mobilizing and demobilizing multiple times. So again, that's time and effort, and you're like literally taking your trainer from here to here. Yes, exactly. Money. Time is money. So, exactly. All right. So now the other thing that I have seen a lot of people miss is going over the specifications. I think, like, I've spoken to so many people that in my experience, like 60 to 70% of the people don't even go over the specs. Why the specs are so important? So the drawings give you the quantity of work and the specs give you the quality of work. What I mean by that is I can tell you, like, hey, or I can ask you questions. I want to buy a car. Tell me the price of the car. Now that's like, you don't know, because am I asking for a Honda? Am I asking for a Ferrari? You don't know that. So the specs are going to tell you if it's a Honda or if it's a Ferrari, right? So you have to be looking at the specifications. Even if you do not have that, obviously specifications is like a 1,000-page document. You cannot go over line by line, but simply, maybe doing like a quick search of the keywords, if there are allowances, because a lot of times, if there would be allowances, if there are allowances, they will be listed in the specifications. Like if you have contaminated soil, or if you are supposed to put something for abatement in your spec, in your bid, then it's going to be there in the spec. So just,
I was thinking, like this, like government section can be very everyday. It's like this big.
yeah, it's on this.
Is there can chat GPT help with that? Like break it down up on the.
I'm sure you can. Like I had actually, yeah.
It get crazy. These specs, they very you can make.
I have the case in point where there was an electrical contractor, and they bid and won the job, But after further review, they found that there was a building management system that was required, and that's integrating into the APAC. So he assumed that it was the APAC contractor, but it wasn't, and that created a big problem. So how do you solve a problem like that? I guess that's a question for you.
Well, I mean, so I'm going through a very similar problem in it's an SCA project. SCA? Yes. So they included a spec for, I think there's a small library in there. There's a spec in there for some security for the library, like, somebody cannot walk out as a book. So there's a whole security system. It's like a package of its own. And there's a spec. Now, there's nothing shown on the drawings, nothing. And at this point, the architect is saying that the contractor should have picked it up. Our stand on that is there's nothing for the contractor to price, even though like I'm working for the owner. But here what I see is that it wasn't on the drawing, so there's no way, like, what are you even pricing? There's no quantity. It's not listed on the FFE plan. But so now, of course, like, there's no confusion yet. There's going to be back and forth. But, it wasn't the specs.
But then they don't the drawing pick
That's what the contractor is going to argue at. That's what the stand that we give to the owner. But the architect, obviously being the architect, they're trying to defend their.
But from a procedural perspective, you would submit an RFI.
Exactly. That was my first question. Like, was there an RFI there? Because had you gone over the spec, first of all, this problem wouldn't have.
I'm gonna really
Most people don't read it. Exactly.
got the pages.
They don't. But here's the thing. Like, you should, like, even if you're not going over the specs and details, just look at the headings. At least that will tell you, okay, that BMS, it would have jumped out here, right? Like, had you gone over the specs, then you would be like, and at that point, you can ask the question. Yes.
What's an FFE?
It's like the furnished plan. Yeah, so like there's going to be like a drawing which might have the furniture, that kind of, yeah. There's typically a drawing and the SCA does, or like actually most, in the architectural part, you would see like a furnished plan, like with like furniture or anything that you're supposed to furnish the contractors. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the key takeaway, especially when it comes to, being a survivor, you have to do a very detailed spec review, right? Specifically when you're building in New York City, there's complex MEP integrations that you have to be mindful of. And so if you don't pay attention to that, you could find yourself in
I said get chat. Because excuse me, it can't a lot.
Yes,
Kajib, I see, as Anish mentioned, always cross-check between your drawings and your spec. You go for those inconsistencies. Because that'll help you close the gap.
Yeah, so this is a voice search. When you download the specs, and you could type in keywords, allowances, security, and that's what we usually do. Allowances are usually on the drawings, but sometimes they're not, and they're in the specs. And you could find it there. So if you're bidding as a sub, you don't have to, I don't know. You should always look at the spec, but not as, like, you have to be really diligent when you have a prime or regular GC, because you are responsible at the end of the day. And for your SCA issue, I would argue that had your sub contractor or a contractor just post one of their people at the door security at night. And that issue could be easily solved for everyone. For security, because I was in a similar situation like that with the SCA. He posed that question and they accepted it. And the project continued.
In this particular case, it's more of like there was a spec to provide and install a security system, and now they're asking for a credit back from the contractor. And I was supposed to price that change order. I'm like, but there's nothing on the drawings to price. It's basically like a change order. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, a credit. So now I thought it was a security. No. It's just like, so it's like a whole system. So there's like tapes that you can put on the books, and it scans as you walk out. So this whole system is like a specialized system, and there was a whole spec for it, but nowhere shown on the drawing. So I really think it's like, there's nothing to credit, because sure, it's then the specs. Arguably, like, I can't believe, like, of God knows how many contractors bid on this job. Nobody picked it up, but here you are. It is what it is.
They cannot price it because it's not in the spec. And so, right? So even if the contractors looked it up, there's nothing in there to price.
There's nothing in there. But that's the thing. They should have asked the RFI at, the bid phases, like, what is this spec for? But again, nobody picked it up because nobody looks at the spec. There are other things that you can do, like a control F, which is what I do in the spec book, is like attic stock. Sometimes you're supposed to provide things extra. Like if there's paint, you're supposed to provide 5 gallons of paint for every color, or if there's tiles or anything like that, that's also there in the spec. Yeah. So there's always attic stock or extra, like I search for the doors extra, or, there are some things that I always search for when I'm looking at the specs. Okay. So this is like, as I was saying, try to do like a pre-bid walkthrough if available to you, just to understand what kind of site conditions. You can have like a checklist that you always keep in hand for every project. Again, we are trying to standardize most of our processes. So if you have a checklist already, you don't have to, keep doing this for every project. You already know. And this is not a comprehensive list, but according to you, if you think you want to add something, and over time you can refine it and add more things to this checklist. Now, quantity takeoff. So has any one of you ever done takeoffs actually? Right. Okay.
Yes.
So what soft
In real life, it's a whole.
Yeah, different.
So do you do it on paper, or do you use some softwares, or what do you use?
No, I'm on the CM side, so
Okay.
I'm focused on entrepreneur management. So I will that stuff. I only did it in school.
I do it on paper.
On paper, so like scale. And you, right, got it.
Into it.
My colleague makes fun of me. She's like, you're from the generation, but I don't know how to use the scale. I don't know how to use the physical scale. I just do it with software, unfortunately. But yeah, anybody else has experience with takeoffs?
I use 360.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one too. What? And you raise your hand as well. What do you use for takeoffs? Like, how do you do the takeoffs? Yeah, I think yeah. Okay. But so like you assume like whatever the dimensions are shown on the floor ladder, do it that way. Okay. Okay, good. So yeah.
So your exteriors.
Linear.
Years, yeah. So again, yeah, depending on the trade or how deep do you need to go, you obviously, I think it's the pen and paper is working for everyone. We use this software called on-screen takeoff. It's a simple software. You can calculate, area, you can calculate linear feet, you can do the counts, which we use a lot. Like we do full estimating, like from, excavation and demolition all the way to the full, like every single shape is what we do. So, doing it by hand is definitely more time consuming. So we do need the software. But yeah, what you would do on a software is simply, let's say you're working on, I don't know, like interiors, so walls. So there are going to be different kind of walls. So what you would do on that plan is choose, okay, it's type A1, and I am going to draw a line from there to there, and I'll keep going on the floor plan, and at the end it's going to tell me, okay, you have 100 linear feet of type A1 or 200 linear feet of type A2 and so on. And once I'm done, I'm just going to take it and put it together in a sheet where I'm finding pricing these things. So step number 1 is the quantity takeoff, and this is the most important step. Why? Because if your quantity is off, your entire estimate is off. And before anybody even starts doing the takeoff, the first thing that you should do is check the scale. So many times there's a scale given which is not right. It's completely off. So you should always check it against something. Like don't start doing your takeoffs or doing the measurements because your scale might not be right. So if number 1 thing, please check the scale first before you actually start doing the measurements.
Yeah, one thing I would add too, just in case, because I've always done the majority of the times residential.
So it's very important to do that amendment of that apartment correct, because if it's now 700 units, that little off of that apartment multiply
Let's divide the
exactly right. That's a lot loss for your pocket.
right. Yeah. Definitely. That's why I said, like, if your takeoff is wrong and if your scale is wrong, then your entire estimate is down the drain.